Hi, I'm Bob, author of Become a Photoshop Expert in a Day by Mastering Layers. Sometime in 2023, Adobe will release a new version of Photoshop that has a bunch of artificial intelligence tools built in. The image generation features come from Adobe Firefly, an AI image generator that works like Stable Diffusion and Midjourney. Having tested it, my opinion is that at the time of this recording in early June, it's very good, but not yet up to the level of those other applications. But these things take time, and I'm sure it'll get there. This is Adobe we're talking about, right? The new features I want to show you in this video are image fill, image generation, adjustment presets, and sky selection. Okay, so I have this portrait image, and I really want this to be landscape. I really want this spread out. I want this to be horizontal. So what I'm going to do is first let me just unlock that background layer, and I'm going to get the crop tool. I'll just press C on the keyboard. These shortcuts work whether you're using Mac or Windows. And what I'm going to do with the crop tool, let's say when I put the mouse pointer on this left center handle, if I drag out, kind of uncropping, even though there's nothing there, it makes the canvas wider. But that's only on one side. I'm going to undo, Command Z or Control Z in Windows, and I'm going to hold down the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key in Windows, and when I hold that down, that will do both sides at once. Okay, so the image is there, and it's just basically expanded the canvas. I'll just press Enter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the marquee tool. I'll just press M on the keyboard, and I'm going to marquee select this left blank transparent area. This is what I want to fill, and I'm not going to go exactly up to it. If you look closely, I'm going to go about a pixel or so in. By the way, this is one of the new tools, this little floating toolbar. And most of the tools in this toolbar have been in Photoshop for a while. Most of this is not new. It's just the toolbar that's new. One thing that is new is, see where it says Generative Fill. Now I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to type some stuff in there a little bit later. Right now, all I'm going to do is hit Enter. And boom, there it is. It just creates it. And let's do from the other side. I'm going to use the same tool, and I'm going to select the area, and I'm going to select 1 or 2 pixels in. And again, I'll click Generative Fill. And instead of hitting Enter, if you don't want to use the keyboard, you could just click Generate. Same thing. And again, it does it. And you notice there's no seam on here. There's no repeating pattern like if you were to use the stamp clone tool or anything like that, clone stamp tool. It's just like this is real. And I've been to this lake. This is my picture. That is actually what it looks like. Let's see what's going on over here on the right. You notice these are layer masks, and you can turn any of these off or on if you want, just to look at it. Now, to make this tutorial work a little easier, I'm going to flatten all this. So I'm going to click the first one and then shift-click the bottom one and Command E on the Mac or Control E on Windows. And let's do some fill. Let me move this bar out of the way. So in the bottom, we have some rocks, and I just want to get rid of those rocks. They get in the way of my kayak. So I'm going to go and get the lasso tool. This toolbar tends to shift around. I'm going to lasso that area of rocks there. And by the way, this generative fill is not just on this floating toolbar. If you go up to the edit menu, you see it's there also. It's the same thing no matter whether you do it from the menu or do it from the floating toolbar. You notice content aware fill is still there. It's just this is so much better. So I'm going to click it and again generate. And it gets rid of those rocks. Okay, now we could do some more cool stuff with this. Again, let me go and flatten these layers to make this a little easier to use. I want to put some other stuff there that just really hasn't been there. So I'm going to go back to the marquee tool, and I'm going to select an area here. And now I'm going to type some stuff into this generative fill. So I'm going to click in there, and I want a kayak, of course. So I'm going to say orange kayak with man wearing blue shirt. It doesn't always get things right. So, and not only are there two guys, one of them doesn't have a head. So let's remove this. I'm going to try it again. Sometimes this works great, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so that's a little better. I don't know if that's the kayak I want. It's a little too long, but you can see the thing is not perfect. And you don't have to put in things that are real. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click off the eyeball there so it disappears. Oh, and by the way, when this is up in here, you notice there's variations. Now, this variations, again, this is, there it is. Didn't want to scroll. You see there's 3 variations. So I can click these. Yeah, so there's, again, something that doesn't quite belong. Another way to see the variations is, you notice over here it says 1 of 3 or 2 of 3 and so on. So there's a few ways to do that. That kayak looks not quite so seaworthy. I'm going to hide it here and click off that eyeball. Go back to that layer. And with the marquee tool, let me select again. And this time I'm going to ask for a sea monster rising out of the water. Not bad. So there's one of them. There's another. I can see his head there. And there also he's kind of submerged. So this first one kind of looks best. Sort of like a dragon or a Loch Ness monster or something. And it really does look like he's coming out of the water. Actually, I think the sea monster looks better than a couple of those kayaks. Now, let's take a look at some adjustment layer presets. And you notice right now it's this sea monster generative layer that's selected. So, adjustment layers, we're going to go in here to the adjustment layers tab. And now, and this is all brand new, all of these presets. So maybe if you're not quite sure of what adjustment you want to make, this will give you some suggestions, and you get previews. So you can roll your mouse over some of these, and you see the little pop-up tells us that's sunshine, this is warmth, this is maybe a little bit more moody, and so on. Now what happens if instead of the top layer, if I click that bottom layer and I roll over, you notice what's happening is that generative layer with the sea monster, that's not being affected. So you want to make sure to get that upper layer. And I didn't have to go and combine these layers. I didn't have to use the Alt or Option key. I'm just doing that. And this is just showing us a few options there. And so I'm going to grab one. Actually, before I do, let me just show you some that are going to be very different. So you can really get a sense that this is changing. So I'm just going to take that, and you notice what it's doing here is, let me scroll that up, and now you can see it put in that adjustment layer. And you could, just like any other adjustment layer, you can disable the eyeball or turn that eyeball back on. So let's do a couple more things. We're going to generate an entire image, and then I'm going to show you another really cool feature. So I'm just going to press Command-N on the Mac or Control-N in Windows. So I'm going to take the default Photoshop size, create, unlock the layer, select the marquee tool, so I'm going to press Command-A or Control-A in Windows, just select all, and let's create something completely from scratch. So I'm going to click in there, and I want summer field on a warm day with grasses and flowers of various colors and a blue sky with white puffy clouds. Okay, that's nice. Let's see what other variations we have. That's good. This is really good. And I say that because you see we've got all of these little strands of grasses coming up on there. Now, if you've ever tried to select a sky in Photoshop and you have a situation like this with all these little thin strands, whether it's grass or trees, bushes, something, how long did that take you? Right? How frustrating was that? Now, Photoshop still has the select and mask tool. It's been reworked and renamed several times over the last bunch of versions, but you don't have to use that. This is so cool. I'm going to go to the select menu, and in the select menu, now there's that select and mask, and you could use it if you want, but I'm going to choose sky, and boom, it just does it. It just selects it. Really not like very little effort in there. And now, of course, we could do all kinds of things that we want with it. I could go back to adjustments and I can make all sorts of adjustments on the sky because, right, it's the sky that's selected. And here are some things that are going to be very obviously different. Make sure you can see it. Something like that or like that, whatever it is that you're trying to do. Clean it up even here, so that's a little brighter, and I'll just click it, and there's that adjustments layer in there. Boom, and it's just done. This is so cool and so fun. I can play with it all day. It's also kind of scary, isn't it? This is a disruptive technology, whether it's Adobe or one of the other AI tools, so who knows what the end result is going to be.